Serena Williams stand on a tennis court. She has just spent years being told she's too aggressive, too muscular, too loud, too angry. And eventually she says something remarkably simple.
There's a tremendous amount of fighting left. There's so much difference between a woman's pay and a men's pay. In tennis, we're lucky that most tournaments, not all, are equal pay. But then there's off the courts, things from endorsement deals to...
Across the world, another woman is standing in front of the United Nations. Emma Watson isn't talking about tennis. She isn't talking about money. She's talking about control.
If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to control, women won't have to be controlled.
And then there is Taylor Swift, a woman whose entire career was built around being watched, judged, sexualized, criticized, and eventually realizing that the rules changed the moment she stopped being perceived as a girl. She said,
also tells Maxim why she's been more vocal about feminism recently. She said, quote, "A man writing about his feelings from a vulnerable place is brave. A woman writing about her feelings from a vulnerable place is oversharing or whining."
3 women, 3 completely different words, but they're describing the same realization. And the thing is, maybe the biggest situation happening to women right now isn't that they're becoming more rebellious. Maybe they're simply becoming harder to convince.
Imagine coming home from like a stressful day of work and there's someone in your fucking house who's like asking you questions like, what are we eating for dinner? Shut the fuck
Because
up.
once you recognize a cage, you stop calling it a home. The strangest thing about social conditioning is that it rarely introduces itself as oppression. It introduces itself as advice. Be nice, don't be too loud, don't intimidate men, don't be difficult, don't age too visibly, don't have too many opinions, don't be too ambitious, don't sleep around, don't stay single forever, and eventually, don't make him feel insecure. Notice what happened? Nobody had to physically force the woman into the role. She learned to police herself. That's the genius of social conditioning. The prison doesn't need guards when the prisoner has memorized the rules. And this is where the modern female awakening gets interesting, because women today have access to something previous generations didn't have at the same scale: comparison. A woman can look at her own life and look at another woman's life in another country and suddenly realizes, wait, it doesn't have to be this way. Or, it doesn't have to be this way? That's a dangerous question, because once you ask it about one thing, you start asking it about everything. Why am I expected to do this? Why does he get to do that? Why is his ambition admirable while mine is selfish? Why is his anger confidence while mine is instability? Why is his sexual history experience while mine is character? Why does marriage automatically mean my life gets smaller? And most importantly, did I actually choose this? Or was I simply rewarded for being obedient to it? That's the question. Not, do women need men? Of course they do, just as men need women. The question is, can a woman build a life she actually wants without having to earn permission first? Because those are very different things. Let's talk about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is fascinating because her awakening isn't instantaneous. She has openly described it as something she learned. Earlier in her career, she didn't even identify strongly with feminism. She later explained that she hadn't understood how deeply gender inequality affected her until she became an adult. And then she noticed something. The exact same behavior was interpreted differently depending on whether the person doing it was a man or a woman. A vulnerable man, brave. A vulnerable woman, oversharing. A confident man, charismatic. A confident woman, difficult. Taylor summarized the problem brutally.
Misogyny is ingrained in people from the time they are born.
Her transformation wasn't becoming louder, it was becoming conscious. She stopped assuming criticism meant she was wrong. And that's the first sign of waking up. You stop confusing discomfort with guilt. Now, look at Serena Williams. She wasn't merely trying to win tennis matches, she was repeatedly forced to defend her right to occupy space. commentators questioned the value of women's tennis, Serena didn't respond by making herself smaller. She pointed to the audience, she pointed to the sold-out stadiums, and essentially asked, if women are supposedly inferior, why are millions of people watching them? Philosophy became even clearer in her writing. She said, my dream wasn't to be the best female tennis player in the world. It was to be the best tennis player in the world. That distinction matters because sometimes equality isn't asking to be placed above men. It's refusing to accept that your gender should be the most interesting thing about your achievement. Then, obviously, there's Emma Watson, and her story exposes another layer. Women aren't the only one damaged by gender expectations. Men are trapped by them too. Emma argued that when men are taught that they must always be aggressive, dominant, and emotionally invulnerable, women are simultaneously taught to become submissive. If men don't have control, women won't have to be controlled. The part people miss, the goal isn't to reverse the hierarchy, it's to dismantle the script, because a woman doesn't become free by becoming the new dictator. She becomes free when she no longer needs a dictator at all. This brings us to the phenomena I call permission loop. Here's how it works. You want something, but before you do it, you unconsciously ask, will people approve? If the answer is yes, you proceed. If the answer is no, you negotiate with yourself. Maybe later, maybe when I'm married, maybe when I'm richer, maybe when I'm prettier, maybe when I'm older, maybe when people understand. And eventually, you don't even know whether you're living your life or managing everyone's reaction to it.
My sister, right, who is literally my own blood, she does not want what I want because this is not for her.
This is why social media has created such a strange contradiction. Women are more connected than ever, but they are also exposed to more judgment than ever. You can watch a woman become CEO, then watch another woman become a mother at 22, then watch another travel the world alone, then watch another choose to stay single, then another become deeply religious, then another reject marriage entirely. And suddenly there is no simple definition of what woman is supposed to be. That's liberating and terrifying, honestly, because now you actually have to choose. And choice is heavier than obedience. If someone tells you exactly what your life should look like, you can blame them when you're unhappy. But when you're given freedom, the responsibility comes back to you. That's why awakening can feel lonely. You aren't just rejecting other people's expectations, you're losing the identity that those expectations gave you. And this is where I think the next phase of female empowerment is going to be very different. It won't necessarily look like women becoming louder, it will look like women becoming selective. Selective about marriage, selective about motherhood, selective about careers, selective about religion, selective about relationships, selective about who gets access to them. Not because every traditional choice is bad, that's another trap. A woman choosing motherhood isn't oppressed. A woman choosing a career isn't liberated automatically. A woman wearing a hijab isn't oppressed. A woman removing it isn't liberated automatically. The question is much more uncomfortable. Was it actually her choice? This is where we need to stop making the awakening about hating men, because that's still allowing men to occupy the center of the conversation. The goal isn't how do I become more powerful than him. It's why was my life ever supposed to revolve around him? That's the shift. You do not need to become masculine to become powerful. You don't need to be cold. You don't need to reject love. You don't need to reject marriage. You don't need to reject motherhood. You don't even need to reject tradition. You simply need to stop confusing tradition with destiny. Because the most powerful woman isn't necessarily the woman who rejects every expectation. She's the woman who examines every expectation and decides for herself. So, ask yourself, if nobody praised me, would I still want this? If nobody judged me, would I still avoid this? If my family couldn't see me, what would I choose? If men couldn't approve or disapprove, what would my life look like? And if the answer scares you, good. That means you're finally asking an honest question. Because maybe women aren't waking up because women suddenly became different. Maybe they're waking up because they finally have enough information to compare the life they were handed with the life they were never told was possible. And once you see that difference, you can't unsee it. You can control a woman by controlling her options, but the moment she realizes she has options, the control starts disappearing. And that's why the most dangerous woman isn't the loudest one, it's the one who quietly looks at the life everyone plans for her and says, no, I will decide.